Okay.
All right, are we live?
I think we're live.
How's my mic? Mic check 1 2.
Sec. Again?
Mic check 1 2.
Yeah, we're looking good.
Okay, sweet. Do you want to give us a little introduction?
Yeah, thanks guys for coming. This is our ETH Vancouver Thursday meetups. We do these every Thursday, and we try to cover like a different topic in Ethereum, have a different speaker each week. If you guys are interested in talking about something or want something to be talked about, that could be another request. Let us know. Otherwise, we have a couple events up. So every Saturday we do a 5-kilometer run, a Nouns DAO Nouns running club, 5K. This week I think we're gonna switch it up and do around Stanley Park. So just like I think it's a 12,
that's like 13K. Yeah.
13. But we're not going to run the whole way. We're just going to do like a walk run kind of thing. So if you're interested in that, it should be nice weather this weekend. Come out. We'll meet at noon. I don't know where we'll meet because we probably don't want to start from where we normally start. Keep an eye on. I'll announce it maybe in the Discord or Twitter.
Yeah, there's like a dedicated Telegram
yes.
group as well.
Yeah.
If you're not plugged into that and you want to be, just talk to this guy after.
Yeah. And then at the back we have QR codes. There's a Deek Troll, and I don't know if we have ETH Vancouver, but there's QR codes at the back. Do we have a POAP loaded up? I don't know if Tangle got to it. You can try and tap the poster over there, and if you get a new POAP, we'll get Julian to try it out. Is it this week's? Okay. Okay, sorry. No POAP.
That's not today.
No POAP this week. We'll get you one for next week.
You can still get that one from last week, though. You might as well.
Yeah, true.
You'll probably get something if you collect enough POAPs here. So.
Okay, so by the end of the talk, go walk up, tap the poster, collect it. One last announcement is next week, Wednesday, we're doing a Bitcoin Pizza Day party. So there's a global pizza party initiative. Where sponsors will sponsor pizza parties throughout the world. So we're having one at Haddon Park. It's right beside Kit's Beach at the upper area over there. It should be a nice spot. We'll order a bunch of pizza, free, and refreshments. Come hang out. Just have a good time. That is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday in Haddon Park. Other than that, anything else?
No.
Cool. We'll let Christian talk to us about RuneFi, the future of Bitcoin.
Thank you, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? Great. Nice. Good to hear, too. Okay. Hey, guys. I'm Christian. I'm one of the organizers of EthVan, making sure that we have an event here every week. We're coming up on probably like 120 events we've hosted over the past 2 or so years, which is pretty cool. My day job, Superform there, that's the protocol that I'm building. That's my Twitter if you feel like following me, no pressure. RuneFi, I don't think anyone actually uses this term yet, but I think I want to make it popular. We'll get into what runes are, and I think RuneFi would just be kind of like the financial system built on top of this runes protocol. Is it the future of Bitcoin? Well, let's find out. Okay, I like to put in this disclaimer every time I do a presentation. I'm not even going to bother reading it, but it's, don't go and buy things and blame me when you lose money, I guess. Another disclaimer that's not on here, I'm not going to proclaim to be an expert on this stuff. Why am I making this presentation? Well, I found out about runes, several months ago, 3-4 months ago, I don't know, and I found it to be really interesting and really piqued my interest, and I've been researching about it, and if I put all that time into learning something, I might as well share it with you guys. I like to get up here once in a while and give a talk. It brings me joy to teach people about stuff. So this is just the results of my learning. I still have a lot of things that I need to figure out. So some of you guys might know more than me on certain topics. Feel free to jump in and add value, ask questions whenever you want. Yeah, that's the disclaimers. So we'll start off with some basic Bitcoin concepts. We're kind of gonna like build our way up to runes. I think we'll like set like the groundwork first. I'm gonna assume everyone's like has a basic understanding how Bitcoin works, but maybe a few components like maybe UTXOs you're not like fully like sound on. So we'll just go over this. So what is a UTXO? Well, it's an unspent transaction output. Basically, every Bitcoin transaction has inputs. Inputs are consumed, and then outputs are generated. And it's the unused Bitcoin after you execute a transaction. So you can kind of think of it like change, or it's like an indivisible chunk of Bitcoin, like if an analogy in the real world, like a bill or a coin, right? Like if you have a $20 bill, you can't like rip it in half and now have two $10 bills. You have to like spend it, and you'll get $10 in change. UTXOs kind of work the same way, and I'll show some diagrams so you get a better idea of what it looks like, but this is like how Bitcoin works. Hey, quiet in the back, please. So one wallet can hold multiple UTXOs, and your wallet balance is the sum of all UTXOs. So you might have a balance of, say, 8.5 Bitcoin, and that might be made up of 3 UTXOs. Maybe you have a 8 Bitcoin, 0.4, and 0.1 Bitcoin UTXOs. And maybe you receive these from like several different transactions being sent to you over time. And this is kind of analogous to, say, you had a piggy bank. In the piggy bank, you have like a $20 bill, a $1 bill, and a quarter. So your total piggy bank balance is 21.25. So that's kind of how these chunks of Bitcoin are sitting in your wallet. So to show like the flow of UTXOs and like these input, outputs, and transactions, I got like a little diagram made here. So say I get like 1 Bitcoin from the Coinbase transaction, and most of you probably know Coinbase as like the exchange, but actually the name comes from the Coinbase transaction is the first transaction in a Bitcoin block, and it is the transaction that distributes the block reward and the fees to the miner who mine the block. So say that I want to send 0.5 Bitcoin to Julian. So as you can see, what's going to happen here is my input is this 1 Bitcoin UTXO that I received, and the output's going to be 2 separate UTXOs in addition to some fees. So 0.5 Bitcoin goes to Julian. Now he's going to hold that UTXO in his wallet. And then the remaining Bitcoin, the change, is going to go back to my wallet, and that's a second UTXO that I'll hold. And then every transaction has some fees that need to be paid to the miners, so I don't actually get 0.5 Bitcoin. I get, say, 0.499, rough numbers. But the point is we have 1 UTXO as an input and 2 UTXOs as the outputs. Next example. So I have my 0.5 Bitcoin UTXO that I received in change from my previous transaction. And let's say Tangle wants to send me 0.25 Bitcoin because he's a good guy. And now in my wallet, I have 2 UTXOs, 0.5 Bitcoin, 0.25 Bitcoin. So my total wallet balance is 0.75 Bitcoin, comprised of these 2 UTXOs. Now let's say I want to send Steffi 0.6 Bitcoin. And you might notice that none of my UTXOs that I have are big enough to like kind of fulfill that transaction, right? So what's going to happen is the transaction is going to consume both of my UTXOs, so both the 0.5 and 0.25 Bitcoin UTXOs are inputs, and now there's going to be again 2 outputs, and then the fees as well. So the 0.6 Bitcoin goes to Steffi, that's 1 UTXO, and the other is going to be the change that I get, which is 0.75 minus 0.6, and then minus some fees. And that is kind of the way that UTXOs are consumed and generated. Nice of you guys to join us. Yeah, so all my friends just got here. Okay, let's see. That's why I didn't include. Yeah. No.
Yeah, what's a UTXO?
Okay, yeah, see, I purposely excluded you from the... Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is some of the upgrades that happened to Bitcoin over the recent years, because this is important for understanding like how ordinals and runes are possible. So one is SegWit, or segregated witness. This was a protocol upgrade back in August 2017. And the most important thing here is it changed the way that data is stored in Bitcoin, which allows for more transactions to be included in each block. And importantly, it also allowed for more arbitrary data to be included in each transaction. And a result of this, that's like not super relevant, but transactions per second increased by about 3x or so based on this upgrade. And basically, you have this concept of like witness data or signature data, and that's like the signature. Someone has to sign the transaction to prove that they own the UTXO that's being consumed in that transaction. And the signature data can be like quite big. And before that, it was like included in with the transaction data. So what that looked like was like something on the left here. So you have the transaction data and the signature data filling up this like non-SegWit block. And then in SegWit, we separate these. So if you see that you remove the signature component from the transaction data, you have like all this extra space in the block where you can like put more stuff. And then also we can fill up this witness section with more random arbitrary data. So a SegWit block will look more like something like this, where we can fit all this transaction data. In addition to, we have this separate section for the witness data that can be anything, any arbitrary piece of data. And this kind of like was a workaround, like a cheat code to like kind of increase the block size of Bitcoin, but not actually. Like it's still 4 megabytes, but the data in the witness data is like weighted differently. So you can technically fit more data in one single block, but like not actually. Don't worry too much about that. But more data, good. The next upgrade we'll talk about is Taproot. This one was in November 2021. And this was like a few different upgrades. We'll just talk about like kind of the important things and like why it's relevant. Why it's relevant, again, this increased the amount of arbitrary data, just like SegWit, and that's the most important thing here. But there was a few things like key aggregation. So we can combine multiple signatures into one, and then signatures are smaller, more secure, more flexible. That's more throughput. Unexecuted transactions are not recorded on chain anymore. And so that allows for more throughput. And this also opened the door for like smart contract functionality, and they created this like easier system for storing arbitrary data. And actually, I believe you can fill up an entire block with arbitrary data. So you can have up to 4 megabytes of bullshit in a block. What?
If you left, there'd be no room for other transactions.
Yeah, exactly. But so it'd be up to the miner if they wanted to like include that. What do you say? We mean arbitrary, like anything, right? And yeah, so people were worried about this because they were, maybe rightly so, but they were worried about like random spam transactions with like, random shit, like what fart sounds you said, clogging up the chain that's supposed to be used for, secure financial transactions. And this is actually, these upgrades cause a lot of debate within the Bitcoin community. Again, because there's a split between people who just think Bitcoin should be a, this kind of very simple, secure way to store value and like transfer value. And other people think that, I like the quote, like make Bitcoin fun again. So, all these cool things that we can do on like EVM and other networks, like can we do those things on Bitcoin? And it turns out we kind of can, and these upgrades kind of laid the foundation for that. One more thing we'll talk about before we jump into that is Satoshis. Hopefully you all know what Satoshis are, but they're important for ordinals, which we'll talk about next. But there's 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin, or 1 Satoshi equals 0.000000001 Bitcoin. And because we have a 21 million total supply of Bitcoin, there's a total of 2.1 quadrillion total Satoshis that will ever exist. Apparently, because of some like weird rounding thing, it's actually less than that, and not exactly 2.1 quadrillion. So if you want to like fact check me on that, but for all intents and purposes, it's essentially 2.1 quadrillion. Okay, so that brings us to the fun stuff we can do on Bitcoin. So we have ordinals. And this first thing we could do here was have NFTs on Bitcoin. And we achieved non-fungibility by attaching data to individual Satoshis. And this can be text, this can be images, this can be video, this can even be games, right? Again, anything you could fit in 4 megabytes. Just a lot of things. And this is based on ordinal theory. And it's actually really simple. You just give each Satoshi a unique number in the order they were mined. So like the very first Satoshi ever is 0, the one after that is 1, all the way up to 21 quadrillion. And now we can assign this data to a Satoshi, and now Satoshis in a way are non-fungible because each one can have a different piece of data attached to it. The creator of ordinals, Casey Rodomar, he called them Bitcoin native digital artifacts. Digital artifacts is kind of cooler than NFTs, I guess. NFTs is kind of, people don't look too fondly on them. It's not the best buzzword these days. Digital artifacts is pretty cool. And this was made possible by Segwit and Taproot, like we talked about before. And then inscriptions, you might have heard as well. So an inscription is the data. So the ordinals is like the system that allows us to give non-fungibility to Bitcoin, and then in the inscription is the actual data that's attached to a particular Satoshi. And this is contained within that witness data that we talked about in the SegWit upgrade. So just some like visualizations of what this might look like. So on like a per Bitcoin basis, it wouldn't work exactly this way, but so you have a Bitcoin made up of multiple Satoshis. In fact, 100 million Satoshis in a Bitcoin. So you can say the very first Satoshi in that Bitcoin will be 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to the end, and we have 99,999,999, and then the next Bitcoin will start. The first Satoshi would be 100 million, 100 million one, and so on. More so in practice, it'll look more like this on the bottom. So the Genesis block 0, that was the very first Bitcoin block ever mined. Back in the day when Bitcoin first launched, the mining reward was 50 Bitcoin per block. Now it's like 0.3125. And so in this block, we have 50 Bitcoin that was given to the Satoshi who mined it. And we can say that block contains 5 billion Satoshis, or Satoshi 0 to 4 billion, blah, 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 blah. And then block 1, or the second block ever mined, it was another 50 block reward, and that's going to have, 4 billion, or I guess, sorry, that's a typo. It should be 5 billion. It'd be the next one. Yeah, that's wrong, but you get the point, right? And this is something that we have like kind of determined outside of the context of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network itself doesn't recognize this. All it cares is this is like a chunk of 50 Bitcoin, right? It doesn't actually, it has no meaning to the Bitcoin network itself that each of these Satoshis is different. Like as far as Bitcoin's concerned, all these Satoshis are fungible within the block, but this is an attempt to create some like non-fungible properties by having this kind of like off-chain system that's going to assign a number to each Satoshi. And then the process of inscribing on these ordinals. So the technical thing that happens is you will wrap arbitrary data in a Taproot script and inject that into the witness portion of a Bitcoin transaction. So again, we have that SegWit block with the witness data. We can hold arbitrary data. And then maybe it's this picture, believe it or not, this picture is worth like $20,000. And you can inscribe that on some random Satoshi. If with by default, it's going to be on the first Satoshi of that, of the UTXO that is outputted after this transaction is complete. So there's going to be some output. By default, the very first Satoshi will be inscribed, or our ordinal system that determines that each Satoshi can have some piece of data attached to it. We're going to say this piece of data belongs to this first Satoshi in this UTXO. Or we can use something called a pointer, and we can select some different Satoshi within the UTXO to inscribe the data to.
Do you know what the size limits are there? Like how much can you put? How much data could you put in that one Satoshi?
Well, again, you can put up to 4 megabytes because you could you can I believe you could technically fill up an entire block with one single inscription.
Okay.
And I mean, I could be wrong. Do you think that's not the case?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah,
but
it's complicated, but you can end up spreading it out over
multiple Satoshis, right?
I I know that you can split it up into different pushes, and I think different envelopes if it's large. But yes, it's like what you're willing to pay for.
Yeah,
Like the big miners
yeah,
can.
yeah. You have to convince a miner to include your giant ass inscription into the next block, right? So you have to be, if you're willing to pay a big enough fee, then sure, a miner would love to do that.
But within a block, you can split them up as well, so it can be over.
The 4 megabyte data limit is the entire block. So one block, all the transaction data and all the witness data cannot be more than 4 megabytes.
Okay.
You can anything that can fit in 4 megabytes. You could probably apparently I don't know of a game that exists on Bitcoin, but you could, yeah. Apparently you could fit a game that was 4 megabytes or less onto Satoshi. I don't know what that looks like in practice.
Wasn't there a block that some miners selectively mine that only has witness data? I think
Yes, yeah. So that could be the case again. You can have a block that is literally full of just arbitrary data with no like transaction data. I think, or maybe that has to be one transaction. Probably at least one transaction, I guess. Like it has to.
So sorry, I'm. So you put this arbitrary data on the block, the SegWit block, and that produces multiple Satoshis, right? That block, in that block there would be multiple Satoshis, or
you're gonna have outputs,
right?
And there will be multiple Satoshis. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not gonna be one single Satoshi. In fact, we'll see later, but yeah, I think one UTXO there's like a 500 something Satoshi minimum per UTXO.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, is that data put on all those UTXOs? No, just
No, yeah. So you're inscribing on one particular Satoshi in one particular UTXO.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
the okay.
So
And
there
then-
might be multiple UTXOs that are outputs of this particular block, or even a given transaction. But you're
Choosing
you're
one.
inscribing one single Satoshi. Yeah, and within one block, you could make multiple inscriptions on multiple Satoshis. But
Oh, okay.
this is just like for each particular inscription will be you're gonna put data that says put this data on this Satoshi.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then sorry, just one more. It's 4 megabytes per Satoshi or 4 megabytes per
4 megabytes per block.
block.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Each Bitcoin block cannot contain more than 4 megabytes.
Right.
That's like
Right.
fundamental. Yeah,
Because
Bitcoin
it's
101
that many
because
Satoshi. Okay.
yeah, well, because
Okay.
we don't want that's like like decentralization is like a big reason there, right? Like you want
Okay.
everyone to be able to run a full node if they want to, and if the blocks are 8 megabytes, like 16 megabytes, etc., then it becomes like very infeasible for the average person to be able to run a node. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we want blocks to be small so that it's accessible for people to run a node, because again you're holding now we're at like 850,000 blocks almost at like 4 megabytes per block, whatever math, and then yeah.
And the data you add, it's public, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like
Yeah,
the
it's all
image,
everything is public. Yeah, well, it's all included in this. It's inside the block, so it's all there for everyone
so
to see.
what's the purpose of that?
Oh, well, I mean, so you can you can put ugly pictures on the blockchain. So the purpose is, I mean, we're getting into the purposes, right? But so the first thing that we had was NFTs or digital artifacts on Bitcoin, right? So it's kind of cool. Before Bitcoin was fully fungible, and now we can say actually we can in this kind of roundabout way have non-fungible assets on Bitcoin, and that can be as silly as like a picture that's worth $20,000. I saw something cool about somebody putting important works of like literature on Bitcoin blockchain. So in like the future dystopia where like all the books are burned and they're rewriting history, we'll still have copies of like 1984 on the Bitcoin blockchain, and the Bible or something. I don't know. So you can put like important digital artifacts on chain, and they're there forever as long as the internet and the chain are running. And then we'll get into like other, like we can have shit coins essentially. Those have a lot of value. This is kind of setting the grounds for letting us do other things on Bitcoin besides just storing and sending value. It's kind of, maybe it seems silly when you look at this, but there is, and the whole point I'm getting to at the end of this is like, we're not there yet, but like because of these like kind of this groundwork that's been laid over these upgrades and the UTXO model and now ordinals and then runes, like what are the cool things we can continue to build on top of this system?
Very quick follow-up.
Yeah.
So the images, is it the website to the image where it's hosted, or they just like kind of put the pixels? I'm not too sure.
In this case,
Yes.
unlike the majority of Ethereum NFTs, these are actually fully on-chain
okay.
because you have the data that represents the image. It's like
Yes.
it's like a hash or something like that, and it's actually stored in the So you cannot alter these. Sweet, great questions, guys. I love it. The next thing is just transferring ordinals the way this works. So this is done on a first in, first out method, just so you get a bit more understanding of like how this works. So say we have like 3 inputs and 2 outputs to a transaction. You'll notice that these, the first, they're going to be assigned in order of input into the output. So we have 600 sats in input 1, 1,000 sats in input 2, 1,000 sats in input 3. And now if the so what I have here is like the satoshis is like the size of the UTXO, and then inside the box that's like the ordinal number of the satoshi, right? So we have a 600 satoshi UTXO in input 1, which in terms of our ordinal theory is 0 to 599 satoshis. And then in input 2, same thing, it's in a 1,000 satoshi UTXO, and then with 599 to 1599 in terms of ordinal theory. And you can see that now in our first output, which is 1,000 satoshis, we take the first 1,000, so 0 to 999. So it's first in, first out, right? So the first satoshis that go into these outputs are the first satoshis that go, go into the inputs, or the first satoshis go into the outputs. And then at the end is where we take the fee. So this is kind of gets into, you need to be careful when you're like moving ordinals around, because I'm saying that my if my ordinal is attached to like Satoshi 20 or what have I done with the numbers here? I think don't worry about the numbers too much, but the point being, imagine you have all your inputs, right? We have like 2,600 satoshis, and my inscription is on Satoshi number like 2,600 or 2,599, whatever. And now, if I just send this as is, my inscription is actually going to get burned like in fees, or sent to the miner in fees, and then I just lose my inscription. So kind of a problem with this is like, because we're relying on like the individual like attaching value or like data to an individual Satoshi, we have to be cognizant of where the Satoshi goes, but when we're destroying inputs and creating new outputs. And there's like, so you have all these platforms that are built around ordinals that have like UTXO management, because like the old Bitcoin wallets, like they didn't like take much of this stuff into account, but you can split UTXOs, you can combine UTXOs, and you can actually like pull out like a particular Satoshi or range of Satoshis from a UTXO and like restructure the UTXOs in your wallet to make sure that you don't like fuck up and like get rid of your like super rare inscription, because it is possible. So that's how ordinals are transferred. Maybe like a little complicated, but I thought it was like kind of interesting the way this works, so I just wanted to include it. And then you can see the minimum UTXO size here, 546 satoshis, right? And that's because anything lower than that, they consider like it's a risk of like a dust attack, and someone like taking these like really tiny UTXOs and like spamming the network with them. So this is a limit in place. And I think it depends on the type of Bitcoin wallet, the exact Satoshi limit, but we'll say around 500 sats. So, which is interesting, even though you're inscribing on one particular Satoshi, you can't ever have a UTXO that's just like one Satoshi. It's going to be one of the Satoshis within a range inside of a UTXO. And then, yeah, so you can put these pretty pictures on the blockchain. This Bitcoin wizards, Bitcoin puppets, quantum cats, and Bitcoin frogs. These are some of like the most popular ones. You know, they're okay. Excuse me. Okay, next we'll talk about BRC20. And this is like a first, I guess not a first attempt, but a first attempt at like kind of native Bitcoin fungible tokens, or, you know, shitcoins. And this uses ordinals as well. And really, it's more like semi-fungible. I'll talk like a little bit about why it's not like fully fungible. You can only like exchange these things in set increments. You're gonna mint some number of a BRC20, and then like you can really only like exchange it in that chunk. So I'll show you what it looks like on like a marketplace. They're like NFTs with numbers on them, really, but we'll call them semi-fungible. And the way this works is, instead of putting like an image or a video file on inscribing that into a Satoshi, you inscribe text, or specifically JSON data. And it looks. This is what a mint or a deploying a new BRC20. This is the data you would put inside of the like the witness data when you're inscribing, and it's going to define the ticker, the max supply, the limits, like the maximum amount of, in this case, ordi that you could mint per transaction. And then you can have a separate transaction after this has been deployed that I want to mint it. And I can then, in the same thing, using inscription, I can mint up to 1,000 ordi. And then I'm going to have a UTXO that has one of the sats inscribed with this inscription that is saying that I own this much ordi. Maybe we'll like show you like here. I think I have it pulled up. Yeah, so this is Unisat. This is a marketplace where you can trade ordinals and runes. And you can see what this looks like. Great. So this is ordi. And you see people are selling like this much. Like they're selling these chunks of ordi. And this is kind of more like this works more like an NFT marketplace than you would typically think of like trading fungible tokens. Because I'd have to buy them like in this chunk. Like this person, they're selling 80 ordi for this price, and I have to buy them in this chunk. I can't like separate them up. This is the amount that they minted, and so that's why we're saying it's like semi-fungible. But this is like kind of a first attempt at what fungible tokens could look like on Bitcoin. And all the functions within the BRC20 like standard require an inscription. So again, we talked about like the deployment, which is like this one here. That's the JSON that would define the max supply, the ticker, the mint limit, and then another inscription to mint the inscription, or to mint the to mint the BRC20 and transfer gives you to the token balance, and then also another inscription to transfer, and that will like deduct from the sender's balance and add to the receiver's balance. So all of these functions within BRC20, each one is like a separate inscription every time you do one of these. Yeah.
So, do I understand it correctly? You can create basically like any token with like any amount and sell it on the marketplace?
Yeah. It's all open information, so you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Does it have any value? Like, that's a whole other question. But yeah, exactly. Anyone, like, you could go inscription, and you could create, whatever token you want to call it, and you can set your max supply. You can set a limit. Other people can mint your token, or you can, mint it all for yourself, and then you can sell it to other people if people want to buy it. It's all, this is a marketplace, right? There has to be demand for this stuff. I mean, this one's, I think Ordi was the first ever BRC20, if I recall correctly, so this has some kind of like, provenance and value in that way. There's like some, is there a project attached to Ordi? Does anyone know? Yeah, some of these are associated with like, you know, other maybe NFT collections or other projects, or there's some community that's rallied around them, just like some random meme coin, you know. Why does something have value? Like, that's a whole other question. But if someone's willing to pay money for it, I guess that's what makes something have value. There's some issues with BRC20. So it creates this problem of like junk UTXOs. Again, because we don't really care about UTXO management. The balance of these BRC20s is held by your address, not like within the UTXOs. So, and then where we care about like this particular Satoshi or range of Satoshis within a UTXO. So this BRC20 ends up with a lot of like kind of junk UTXOs that aren't being used for like the maybe the correct purpose of a UTXO within Bitcoin, whatever that might be. Another thing is that ordinals require off-chain data. So in order to like track, say again, going back to that diagram I had of like a Bitcoin block is going to have, you know, X number of Satoshi within it, but the Bitcoin network natively doesn't recognize that each Satoshi is fungible. It doesn't. We externally have assigned these numbers to these Satoshis, so you need some kind of like off-chain infrastructure to track and say that, you know, you're tracking all this data that we've put inside the witness data and saying that, okay, because that data said this, then now this Satoshi is attached to this NFT, and because I have that Satoshi in my wallet, I own the NFT. But that is not like a native on-chain Bitcoin thing. We require some like off-chain infrastructure to track that. And then the limited transferability, that was kind of like that semi-fungible property we were just talking about. And for those of you who might care, it's not compatible with the Lightning Network, which is like a Bitcoin scaling solution of questionable merit, if you ask some of the people in here. Okay, let's talk about Runes. Runes is another protocol for native fungible tokens on Bitcoin. And we're assuming, or apparently this is a more efficient way to do this, to have fungible tokens on Bitcoin. So this launched very recently in the 2024 halving, like less than a month ago on block 840,000. And runes are UTXO based, so rune balances are held by UTXOs rather than like ordinals balances are held by your wallet. And instead of being held in the witness data, this is stored in a different place, op return, which is actually some arbitrary data that can be included at the end of a transaction. And it's very small, it's up to 80 bytes. And it's just like, so like 80 characters essentially. And basically all of the functionality of runes is contained within that tiny little 80 bytes per transaction. And a UTXO can contain any amount of any number of runes. You can have like one UTXO that holds Bitcoin, that holds, you know, Rune X, Rune Y, Rune Z, any amount of all of them. Runes is Lightning compatible. You can send runes through the Lightning Network. And Runes was also founded by Casey Rodomar, the guy who did ordinals, and he explicitly said that Runes is made for meme coins and degens. You know, he doesn't necessarily expect anything of like tremendous value to be built on top of it, but he didn't like BRC20. He made ordinals, he saw what people did with ordinals to create BRC20, and he was like a little bit offended by it, and he thought he could create something a little more efficient. And I think he has. I think it's pretty cool stuff. Excuse me. So here we have on the left an example of a UTXO, again, that might contain half a Bitcoin, 100 of Rune X, 200 of Rune Y, 1,000 of Rune Z, arbitrary, can contain any number of any runes. And then the comparison of runes versus BRC20. So again, runes are UTXO based, BRC20 is ordinal based. BRC20 has a higher on-chain footprint due to these like junk UTXOs that it's known to create, or the proliferation of UTXOs. Runes is Lightning compatible, and they both have this open mint mechanic, where kind of like anybody can mint. When a mint is ongoing for a BRC20 or a rune, like anybody can go in, and it's essentially like a fee market, and you're like whoever is going to pay the most fees of the miner to include your transaction in the next block, you'll have the right to mint. Like there's no. It's kind of like permissionless participation in the mint. Another concept is rune stones, and not to be confused with the ordinal runestone. But runestones are messages on the rune protocol. Again, they're inside of this. The op return is where the message sits in this tiny little 80 bytes at the end of a transaction. And we can do 3 things within a runestone. We can etch, which is creating a new rune, bringing a new rune into existence. We can mint, which would be once a rune is etched, you can mint a certain amount from that supply. And then we can also transfer. Now, when we're etching a rune, there's like some kind of cool mechanics here. So you choose a name for the rune. The letters A to Z, 1 to 26 characters with spacers for readability. The spacers, I think I have them. Yeah, the spacers are little dots here. Well, I'll go back to this slide in a sec. But just for readability, you can make words out of it. But an important thing here is right now, currently, you can only create runes with names that are 13 characters or more. And this is to prevent people from, like, you know, all the good tickers are going to be maybe like 4 and 5, or, you know, the longer character names are harder to come up with like cool memeable things, but you'll see some people have come up with some interesting stuff. And then I think approximately, like, it's a certain number of blocks, but I think it's approximately every 4 months. You can create like a ticker or a name that's like 1 character shorter. So in 4 months, you can do 12 characters. 4 months after that, you can do 11 characters. So I think about 3 years from now is when like 4 character names will be available. So it kind of is like interesting dynamic in terms of like, you know, people are going to want to get these more desirable names, but they have to wait a certain amount of time. There's going to be some competition for some bigger ones, like, you know, an example is like Tether maybe wants like Tether or USDT or something, and there'll be some competition for them to like get that when the time comes around. That's like an example I've seen, but you can think someone might want any random arbitrary name or word. Someone might want a rune called that, you know, Pepe or etc. A few more mechanics here. We have divisibility. So like this is like the number of decimals essentially that a rune would have. So a divisibility of 0, like no decimals, is just fixed amounts of like whole numbers. Divisibility of 1 would be like 1 decimal point, so you could get up to like, you know, 1.1 and so on. You can have a pre-mine, so the person who etches the rune can like reserve a portion for themselves that they get, and you get to keep. You can see a lot of these mints are like, you know, 10, 20% pre-mine. One was like 99%. And then there's mint terms. So what is the per mint? What is the amount that you mint per transaction? So like basically it's going to be like 1 UTXO per rune mint. And for each one, there's going to be some amount that you get. Maybe you get 100 runes per mint. And that's determined by the etcher when they do this like etching transaction. They can also determine the start and end time, which can be based on like a block, for example, like start of this block, end in this block, or maybe there's no end time. And there's a supply cap, like what's the max supply of the rune? And 21 million is pretty popular. And like I said, you make this runestone message in the op return for an etching, also for minting. So someone's gonna etch, and now there's like, okay, now there's 21 million of this random rune that you can mint, and now people are going to be able to execute transactions to mint, and when they do that, they will receive an output, which is a UTXO, which includes the runes that they've minted. And then we can transfer runes from transaction inputs to outputs. And this is called the runestone, or the message that we have here. It's called an edict, and this includes the rune ID, the amount of the rune, and then the input, which will show what that looks like. I think here. I have it here. We'll get to that in a second. This is the first 10 runes that were etched. These were all etched in the halving block, 840,000. These, you can see kind of what's going on here. Like, you have to pick a name that fits between 13 and 26 characters. Uncommon Goods was hard-coded by Casey, the creator. So it's like the Genesis rune, rune 0. And then all of these was like a competition to see who could get the first or second or third rune. Some of these are attached to like existing projects or like protocols. So the ZZZZ Fahu, I think there's some like Bitcoin. It's like a Bitcoin L2, I believe that is associated with that one. That one's interesting. That one's like was a 99% pre-mine, so you could only mint 1% of the supply. The rest all went to the etcher. Decentralized, that's associated with CyberKongs, which is like an NFT project, and they released Prometheans. And so there was a whole meta going on of like pre-runes, and essentially if you bought this ordinal NFT, you were guaranteed to get an airdrop of runes after the NFT creator etched the rune on the halving block. And then, so that happened, like if you held a Promethean, you got decentralized. If you held a runestone ordinal, you got dog, go to the moon. Some of these are like, kind of like, we don't know who etched these. Some of these are associated with projects, but some of them, like Satoshi Nakamoto and Meme Economics, I think, like, I'm not sure like who necessarily etched those. And then there's kind of the idea that these runes will have more value than later runes. Just like these are like the first runes that got minted and we go from 0 to infinity in terms of the number of runes. So the top, I don't know, 10, 100, whatever, are just gonna, perhaps people will ascribe more value to these. And definitely there's like more attention on them. Like these, the top 10 runes are some of like the most valuable ones currently. No. Nobody can copy it. So that's the thing. So once somebody takes a name, nobody else can take it. Yeah. So that's an important point. I didn't include that. But yeah, another requirement of the name is it has not been taken before. So once someone etches a rune with a certain name, nobody else can etch that same rune. Some diagrams for kind of what this might look like. So again, in the etching stage, in the op return, you're going to include like the name of the rune, the divisibility, the mint terms, etc. And then when you're actually minting, you're going to then say, what's the ID of the rune I'm minting? How much of this rune do I want? And then I'm going to get an UTXO that contains the rune that I've minted. And transferring runes is it's a little complicated, similar to transferring ordinals. So the default state is here. So the way that it works, if you don't, so if you transfer an op, you don't include any additional information or the edict in the op return, then all runes from all inputs end up in the first output. So this is like the default state of transferring runes. Notice that you have like rune X in input 1 and 2, and then rune Y in input 3. And if you don't specify where these runes should go, they're all going to end up in output 1. But in your edict, when you do the op return runestone message, you can specify which runes and how much you want in each output. So then you can have something more like this, where you can, I have these runes at the top, and then I split them up in this way in the bottom. And so this is how you're going to like transfer runes to people. And then we can kind of like abstract this away, and then there's like apps that are like building on top of this. So like you can see here, like on Unisat, I can where are runes? Unisat, I can see the list of runes. Like here are some of the ones that we talked about, and then I can. How do I draw here? So it looks pretty similar to BRC20, right? The difference being you actually can you can split these up into smaller denominations if you wanted to, but currently it's still the case here where someone's selling this many runes and I need to and they're asking for this much money, and I have to pay that much. I can't go and buy one rune unless someone was selling one rune. And then we have some other tools on Luminex. So here, if this is here a mint's ongoing, we can kind of see some stuff in here. Look, we can see 20% pre-mine, so that's the pre-mine amount set up. There's this bitmap Emporium, random name. We got the Dolan Trump Lambo lifestyle. So it's all meme coins, shit coins, right? It's just a new way to gamble, basically. But not actually. It's cooler than that. But you can see if I wanted, I could mint this ticker, and then I could do Luminex lets me do multiple mints. So again, like 1 mint per UTXO, but I could do multiple mints in one transaction here through Luminex. I can etch through Luminex too. I can set my ticker, my decimals, symbol, max supply, limit per mint, all those things. So we're seeing platforms that you don't have to actually interact directly with the blockchain to do these things. You can transfer as well. I can set some amount of some rune and then send it to some address. And I can do this all through Luminex, Unisat. Magic Eden I think they have runes now. So Magic Eden is like really the most popular place for like Bitcoin for ordinals. They also have runes now too. So I believe I can trade this. Oh, maybe you can buy. Oh, look at this. So it looks like Magic Eden actually does. Oh, this is a different rune though. Hang on, let me look at like this one. Oh yeah, I see. So the smallest quantity here is like the base amount. This is the amount you got from like the airdrop, I believe. So you can only buy in like these chunks because people are only selling in that. This is like a batch buy. Anyways, the point is, and swap is coming soon, so that should be interesting. The point being here, we have these tools that let us do these rune transactions without having to like interact with the blockchain.
So is the op return actually enforcing the logics for making sure that the coins add up, or?
What do you mean?
Like if you input like 1,300, like you need to make sure it comes out to be like.
Yeah. So the way this works, I believe. I was just reading about this. So the rune stone, the message, it has to be like valid within like the rules of the protocol, and if not, it's not going to like go through. Like, you can't mint more runes than you're allowed to, or that actually exist. If you do it through one of these platforms, it won't even let you. And then, I mean, if you were to maybe try to input it like manually, if you have like your own node or something, like I assume that the transaction wouldn't. I mean, this guy may has a way better answer than I do.
Yeah, all of this is based on an off-chain indexer, so it's like the ORD, it's called ORD, ORD client, and the ORD nodes will check that you're following the protocol and enforce, because none of this has any of the protocol rules baked in.
That's for ordinals, but for runes it's a bit different though. Like ordinals, it's relying on off-chain indexer, yes, but runes is not so. Runes we can actually like verify things on chain.
But you can verify both of them on chain, but runes is part of the ordinal protocol.
No,
and
it's a separate protocol. It's a different protocol.
it's okay. I'm saying that maybe not conceptually, but the nodes still have to enforce the rules, and they enforce them by deciding which one is valid and which one's not. So I could make what looks like it's like a Bitcoin transaction that does something in op return that looks like it could be a valid rune transfer or mint or what have you, but it would not be considered valid by these nodes that are indexing it. So Magic Eden runs a their node to index and validate these things, and they also, like you said, have like the front end making sure that you're not making these mistakes. But I could submit invalid, valid Bitcoin transactions, but invalid rune transactions. Yeah, is what it is.
Yeah, totally. There's something called like a cursed rune. I'm wondering if that's it. Let me see if I have like the.
Yeah, well, there were cursed inscriptions too.
Yeah, cursed inscriptions, and then within runes, I think we had something. There's a couple of concepts down here. Look, there are cenotaphs. Rune stones may be malformed for a number of reasons. Runes input to a transaction with a cenotaph are burned. Runes action in a transaction with a cenotaph are set as unmintable. Mints in a transaction count towards the mint cap of the mints rune. Okay, so this is the important answer to your question there, if you can see that. So we have this cenotaph concept. So this, we have etching, minting, and that's kind of what's going to happen in the case that you have an invalid rune stone for a variety of reasons. So either the runes are burned or if you etch a rune with incorrect data, it's unmintable. If you try, yes, I think that's the important one. If you try to mint, and it's not like a correct runestone in the terms of like the format, then it's gonna. Oh, that's interesting. Count towards the mint cap, but the minted runes are burned. I wonder if you can like exploit that in some way.
So this is actually clearly someone has a background in database design, because this is actually like one of these principles is that, you know, you're not ignoring or deleting things. You're just marking them as invalid, but you're still tracking them. So it's, I guess, revise it. It'd be like, yeah, it's indexing things that violate the protocol, but it's marking them with like a gravestone and being like, no, this broke the rules that it agreed to, and so we're going to keep account of them and be able to flag them, but we're not like ignoring it or deleting it. It's still part of the index, just in an invalid category.
Yeah.
But the client that you run, the org client, like if you have a Bitcoin full node and you install this, the org client, it will enforce all the rune rules. It will enforce all the ordinal inscription rules, and that's what does it. Is this off-chain client that still needs to know about the Bitcoin chain?
Yeah, and are there any incentives for the operators of these org clients that's like running these indexers?
I think I mean I'm not too sure, but I think I was reading something where that was actually a problem because like there's not really much of an incentive.
I mean, they're consuming the compute resource.
Yeah,
right,
I
to
mean,
index those
for
things.
example, like Magic Eden, they have a huge incentive, right? You know, these guys have huge incentives. The average person, though, I'm not sure about that.
Just to kind of jump on the halving, gold rush, that was an incentive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know how? So Magic Eden would, of course, like take a fee, right?
Yeah.
How is that fee taken? Is it taken from the Bitcoin that's used to purchase it?
So I believe the way this works is there'll be an extra UTXO that is sent to Magic Eden.
Oh.
So I'm gonna pay if they say a charge of 5% fee, like whatever my total cost of the transaction is, I'm gonna have to pay an additional 5%, and then that's gonna generate a separate UTXO that's gonna get sent to the Magic Eden's wallet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so these are all escrow trades too through Magic Eden, right? Because there is no like
Current-
smart contract.
Currently that's the way that these things are working. Yeah. This is, I mean, it's kind of it's similar to like OpenSea, right? Like same kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, but OpenSea doesn't like escrow the contracts, right? They're smart contract, or sorry, they don't escrow the asset. They're smart contracts.
I see what you're
escrow the
saying.
asset.
I got you.
Magic Eden would actually like hold either the Bitcoin or the rune that would be sold, right?
Oh no, I don't think so.
No, you don't need to transfer the list, but you're like,
But-
it may be using. Oh, I need the mic, baby. Yeah. You don't, as far as I mean, I've never traded one before, but as far as I know, you don't need to transfer to them to a custodied wallet
no.
But like,
to list it
no.
and to complete it. So maybe it's using partially signed Bitcoin transactions
Yeah, that's
that are just
Oh.
that are just valid. Like it's kind of like I'm giving you an order that you can complete.
Yeah, but I mean, still technically that.
Someone has to relay that for
Yeah.
sure. So, but it could be solved like. Just a real quick plug for the original Bitcoin meta protocol that used op return, which was Counterparty, was that it had enshrined in the protocol some kind of permissionless escrow and exchange, which used partial transactions. So it is a workflow that you can do.
Interesting.
It's always susceptible, like I said in my talk last week, to front running.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, this is not really custodial like that. Like you're not.
Yeah, you're not
Depositing.
you're not
Okay.
giving Magic Eden your rune. No, I don't think there's any custody in that sense.
Cool.
Oh, can you clarify? So, in your presentation, you showed that you can buy like a section of, not actually on the marketplace. So you
Oh.
can buy like a section of that, the name. I don't understand like what do you actually own?
What do you mean?
So, if you go like buy, and you can
Yeah, here.
actually
Like on this
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
So like you can like it's like you buy part of that rune, or how does it work?
Yeah, well, basically because well, I'm buying this. This is the number of runes I'm buying. I'm buying this total. This is the total number of runes, and I'm buying them in these chunks, right? So basically, people are selling them in this amount. I think if I keep going here, it'll select them all. Yeah. So basically, these are just all the runes that are for sale, and they're just in sale in like tranches of this number. And if I want to do this, seems like a bulk order I can do. And I think this is based on price per stat. Yeah, I think it's ranked by, so it's giving me the best deal, basically. But I don't have to. I could just buy this one if I wanted, right? And now I can get this. But I'm buying this many runes. It's just nobody's selling like one rune here. You know, on centralized exchanges, you can buy like one rune. We'll get to some things like people are building like runes, dexes, like AMMs, where you can probably swap for smaller amounts a little more easily. But given the way that these marketplaces are, more often you're going to be buying these big batches of runes.
So you buy like 3.4 or 5 runes.
No, you're buying this. This is the quantity of runes. This is the price per. This is sats per rune. So I'm spending 3.445 sats per rune, and for a total, if I don't buy 889,000 runes, I'm spending this much Bitcoin or $2,000.
So what do these runes contain? Do they contain like different messages, or?
They don't really contain anything, right? Like it's just a record like that on chain that you own this rune. And it's just like owning like a meme coin on Ethereum. You know, actually, it doesn't mean anything, right? You just it's just the blockchain says that you own this. You own this token.
It contains dog.
Exactly.
But you don't even buy the whole thing. It's just like part of it, no?
Well, look, this is you're buying a percentage of like the total supply. So there's 21 million dog go to the rune tokens. Yeah. So I think we have.
Okay.
I don't know if we have. I don't know if this, yeah, this is exactly. This is the ticker, and then there's 21 million, I believe. Actually, no, there must be more because this is a million right here. I'm not sure what the total supply of dog goes to the moon is. It must be a lot. It must be billions, but the point being that yes, you own the the blockchain says that you are the owner of this random shitcoin. That's what you get.
And I guess this is fungible in the sense that when I put this UTXO through in the transaction, I can kind of split it up into different pieces.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a way to separate this because when you mint, you get like some amount, whatever the mint amount is, and then yes, you can separate that into two different UTXOs and say, say I have one UTXO with 100 of some random rune, I can split that into two UTXOs with 50 of runes in each one, or however I want to do it.
And I can just buy 50 out of that 100 or whatever amount I want out of that 100.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get on here. Can you see that? Okay. This chart I just thought was interesting. We're going to talk about so I think if we look at this one single investment thesis, perhaps. Again, I said no financial advice, but if we look at this, the bar chart here is showing the market cap of the native token and then the market cap of shitcoins on that network. So you can see, for example, Ethereum market cap 378 billion with 500 billion of market cap of shitcoins. Solana with 65 million. Solana market cap 65 bill. Solana shitcoin market cap 37 bill. But then Bitcoin, we have like 1.3 almost trillion in market cap, but this tiny little fraction of not even $1 billion in meme coins or fungible tokens on Bitcoin. So there's maybe like an opportunity here for some of these runes to achieve significant value if it plays out in the same way that it did on these other networks. Not necessarily, it might not, but that's kind of one way you can look at why you might want to buy dog go to the moon. Like for some random meme coin, like that's it. So I thought that was an interesting thing to share. This is as of.
Is this financial advice?
I just said it's not, sir. But you might want to like just like look at this list of runes, and then you might want to look at this chart and then draw your own conclusions. Okay, now we'll get into RuneFi. And again, I don't know if anyone's calling it RuneFi besides me, but I want to make it a thing. Just going off, DeFi or NFTFi or BTCFi or whatever. It's just like a financial system built on top of some protocol. So let's build a financial system on top of runes. This is a little old. I got this from Twitter. It's pretty cool, the kind of like industry map, but it's pre the launch of runes. I think a lot of cool things have come out since then or like are in development still. So I don't think it's like reflective of the current state necessarily, but we can have marketplaces. We saw some of those launch pads. You have wallets, data and tooling like explorers, and then we have AMMs. Again, I don't think anyone's calling it this. I'm calling them stable runes, and then Bitcoin L2s as well. So we'll just go through some of these and kind of see what's going on. This is kind of the I'm still figuring this stuff out. Like I think I've got the fundamentals down now, and now it's like, okay, now that I get it, like what's the cool shit we can build on top of it? So that's kind of where I'm getting to. I don't necessarily like the term Web3, but we can say Bitcoin Web3 wallets, and these are just like, your traditional Bitcoin wallets don't really care or they're aware of ordinals and runes, but things like Xverse and like OKX, they're very good UX, and they will track your ordinals or your BRC20s, your runes. You can manage UTXOs. You can transfer these NFTs and fungible tokens. So these are like important infrastructure for RuneFi. We also have these marketplaces. I showed you some of these. You can browse runes, etch runes, mint runes, transfer runes, buy, sell runes, and then you can manage your UTXOs. You can like combine and split UTXOs on some of these platforms as well. This is stable runes. Again, I'm calling it that. But this is one thing that I came across that's kind of cool. So this is the Ducat protocol. And it's a Bitcoin L1 native stablecoin made with runes. So Unit is the stablecoin or the stable rune, and this is a Bitcoin-backed collateralized debt position, over collateralized. So you deposit, 150 Bitcoin, and or say you deposit like $150 worth of Bitcoin, and then you can mint $100 worth of Unit. And Unit is a rune. And it's going to follow the same rules as runes. And then also they have a governance token, Ducat. And so if you hold the governance token, you can vote on the changes to protocol rules, and you get some fee sharing as well. And this has a few things. This also uses ordinals, so it leverages ordinals. It somehow, again, still wrapping my head around it, but it turns Bitcoin addresses into stablecoin vaults. So essentially what you get from this is permissionless on-chain Bitcoin native leverage, where that I can deposit my Bitcoin and I can receive this stablecoin, and then I can go and use that stablecoin for other things in the Bitcoin financial system, or I could buy more Bitcoin and I could loop it. So I could lend Bitcoin, borrow Unit, convert Unit to Bitcoin, lend Bitcoin, borrow more Unit, convert, and repeat that process.
But as far as I understand it, if all these runes are kind of there's no consensus on runes on Bitcoin, right? It's a lot of infrastructure on top of Bitcoin that isn't necessarily validated, right?
I think the point is it is. I think that's why we actually care, because it is validated. All the data is contained, and we can track it natively on Bitcoin because of the way the data is stored.
Right, but the infrastructure is like we were saying, is that we're still gonna say, okay, this one is tainted or whatever. Sorry, I forgot the word, corrupted, or we're cursed. Is that we're kind of watching what happens on top of here and coming to, I guess, a social consensus of what can be done, right? But there's nothing actually enforcing this as a smart contract on a chain like Ethereum. I guess it is a social consensus.
No. So again, I don't know, maybe read the white paper to fully get what's going on here. Again, I have not fully dove into this one. I just wanted to share it because I thought it's a super cool use case we can talk about. But somehow through the combination of runes and ordinals, we can have this functionality natively on Bitcoin, is the idea. And this is its own protocol, right? This is not just some random rune. They've created their own protocol built on top of runes and ordinals, right? So it's got its own separate set of rules. It's governed by there's this protocol governance via like some DAO or something like that. I think I have a little more info on here. This is just maybe not super relevant to that question, but these are the things, the functions you can do within the protocol. So you can mint and redeem. Minting is locking Bitcoin, unlocking unit, and then redeem is vice versa. And then there's like liquidations as well, which again is enforced somehow by we've created some kind of smart contract functionality. But it's very similar to Ethereum based the same sort of over collateralized loans. And then when you create these vaults, there's some parameters like debt ceiling, like the maximum amount of that can be borrowed from a vault. There's like a liquidation ratio. It looks like it's kind of, again, we have this collateralization limit of like 125 to 150, so there'll be some kind of like health factor, like similar through other like Ethereum lending protocols. There's an interest rate. There's liquidation penalties, things like that. Yeah, so again, I'm not like an expert on the Ducat protocol. I just thought it was interesting, and like if you're curious, you should read more about it. I know I will be. A few more things. I don't have like too much going on here, but some people are building like runes AMMs. And again, like you tell me how that's gonna work. I was looking at like this one. The top one there, literally called Runes Dex. They just raised like $2 million, a bunch of like VCs and stuff. But I couldn't find like documentation on how they're actually gonna do it. But apparently they're building an AMM, right? And then so it's just the same. Imagine the same functionality you can have. There's literally gonna be like liquidity providers. And then you can just like permissionlessly swap runes with a liquidity pool. And again, you tell me how it actually works. So again, so this is kind of where my research has come to, and the next step is like, okay, how does this actually work? What I think is cool is people are building this, like all these cool things that are possible in Ethereum now because of this stuff we talked about before. It's possible on Bitcoin as well. And I think that's the last thing here, Bitcoin L2s. So Ethereum has L2s, these are like ways to scale Ethereum through roll-ups and other ways. Bitcoin had L2s, like there was like the Lightning Network, you can kind of think of that was like an L2. But now we have like a bunch more that are coming up. And they're all very different. I think there's like 40 like Bitcoin L2s that are out now or something. I haven't like done the research to know like the nuances of each one. But they do have some different things. Like some of them are adding like smart contract functionality to Bitcoin. BitVM and Rootstock they're more like maybe more so like a framework for like Bitcoin smart contracts. And then you have like actual chains. Some are optimistic rollups, some are ZK rollups. All of them are just like aiming to increase the throughput of Bitcoin, and essentially they'll like execute transactions on the L2 and then post transactions back to the Bitcoin L1. Some of them will use like Bitcoin as a fee asset. Some of them will have like a peg to Bitcoin they use as the fee asset. Some of them are runes compatible, so we can actually we'll be able to bridge our runes between L1 and L2, and some of them are even EVM compatible, so there'll be like the ability to transfer funds between Bitcoin and Ethereum through this, and then operate like Ethereum type smart contracts on these Bitcoin L2s. Again, I haven't dove deep into each of these and like what makes them unique, but this is like another area where cool shit's happening on Bitcoin. So that is something that you should look into also if you're interested.
Do you know how they're raising like millions of dollars for?
Oh, it's really easy. VCs are like rich and have nothing better to do, so you just
like people.
You just
they also
don't
do
it's
any
all
research.
It's all raised by VCs. Yeah. It's like here's like a pitch deck, and here's like a 10-minute presentation, and here's a few buzzwords, and the VCs give them $1 million. It's pretty easy. You guys could do it too. Honestly, I'm sure that anyone in this room could raise like $2 million from a VC. Like, it wouldn't be too hard. They're flush with cash and like just looking for money to blow. Remember, there's 40 Bitcoin L2s that all raise VC funding. So, because they don't know which one's going to be the best, so it's like spray and pray. Like, oh, that sounds interesting. ZK, optimistic, EVM compatible Bitcoin L2. Like, yeah, I'll throw $1 million bucks at that. Sure. All right. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
How do you? Oh.
Is there any L2s that has gained this similar level of traction as Lightning in terms of like liquidity on the
Does
L2
Lightning
network?
even have traction or liquidity?
Of course, it has like 4,900 some Bitcoins in liquidity.
How many? 4,900. Like, how many dollars is that? Let me do math.
Like hundreds of millions, I think. Or
How much?
don't know.
Yo, how much? How much?
I can check.
What's the TVL of Bob, Julian?
like, I'm just wondering, do you have
Doesn't
a name
matter.
for the L2, Bitcoin L2s like built on ruins that are pretty popular?
I don't
Just
think any of them are
curious.
popular. They're all like in like very early stages. Merlin is the biggest. I'm not sure if Merlin is runes compatible.
Lightning has $300 million.
Dollars?
Yeah. TVL.
Okay, pretty good.
Just trying to find
I assume Runic definitely is runes compatible. That has to be.
Okay, I don't know if this is the right one, but on DeFi Llama it says
Yeah, Merlin has 1.1 billion.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go.
Then it says Bitcoin has 1.1, so I don't know if that would be Taproot or Lightning or something like that.
Bitcoin says 1.1.
It just marks Bitcoin. Yeah, TVL, DeFi Llama.
Maybe. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't have much TVL in itself, right? Maybe that makes sense.
Rootstock has 190.
TVL.
Stacks 111.
Yeah, Bitcoin, the breakdown for TVL is gain layer 2.
Oh, Bob 40.
Oh, damn. Bob's only 40.
Merlin's not even on the under Bitcoin TVL on DeFi Llama.
Core 20.
Yeah, DeFi Lava's got to step up their Bitcoin game, I think.
What do you mean? Merlin's at the top. Merlin's chain number 8 with 1.17. Just go to chains.
Yeah.
Like right below overview. There you go. And then just scroll down chains.
Oh, wait. Bitcoin.
You can pause at number 16 if you want.
Is this, here we go. Wait, 16?
16 overall.
Wait, there's only 12. What are you talking about?
Overall, not just Bitcoin.
What am I going to find here? Wait, why is it not working now? Oh, no, it's frozen.
Merlin, Bitcoin.
Wait, really? That's pretty good. Wow, Merlin has the 8th highest TVL of all chains, eh? Can you do anything on Merlin?
I believe there's a DEX, and you can bridge runes and ordinals to Merlin somehow, as well as like EVM stuff, but their bridge
however
looked kind
that
of sketchy, so I didn't do it.
Okay, so Merlin's the one. Merlin's rune compatible.
But its TVL might not be purely Bitcoin.
Oh, no.
No. It's like it's all kinds.
There's a lot of USDC and ETH on that.
Yeah.
Botanics is the one that's been getting shilled lately. Botanics or Spider or something like that.
Yeah, Merlin compatible with EVM, supports Bitcoin native protocols, BRC20 ordinals and runes. All right, we're bullish on Merlin. Sounds like.
No.
No. All right, we like Bob.
Why don't we like them?
Like, why? Like, oh, speaking
VC's wet
from
dream, man. I told you, EVM compatibility.
okay, yeah. So
Rune
like,
compatibility.
what is the point? There's more chains than users. One, like we already have that issue with EVM. Like, what does a Bitcoin L2 solve?
The
And
fact that Bitcoin has, like,
I'm
10
sitting here next to the
transactions per
modularity
second.
lady that is like pro a billion L2s.
Well, we need at least
not pro
one
billion
Bitcoin L2.
Extracting liquidity from
Bitcoin does not
sources.
have the throughput to handle when Runes launched. Bitcoin fees like $300 per transaction. There's like not enough throughput for the demand in the event that it becomes the thing we all hope it becomes.
But it solves Bitcoin securities problem.
What does?
So like the budget, like Bitcoin
yes.
halvings
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
like
yeah.
fees and so on. So like
Yeah.
yes, congestion actually solves Bitcoin because Bitcoin's not sustainable. So.
Yeah, but then it's like nobody uses it because it's congested, and then it's like gets back to the same issue.
But the
like,
issue,
like nobody in
the
long term,
excuse
you're
of
not going to
nobody
pay
uses it
$300 to like to send a Bitcoin transaction.
I think if it's done correctly, okay, and you're able to have like trust minimized liquidity, so like Bitcoin being moved to an L2, and then you can have smart contract functionality on top of that, whether it be EVM or otherwise, that's interesting. Because some people fundamentally believe in like the security and like the principles of Bitcoin and don't necessarily believe in the same vein in Ethereum.
But you also have to be careful because a lot of these protocols are not using the security.
100%. But you could say that for like any L2.
There's
right?
definitely some like
Not any
other
L2.
risks here,
You can say that
centralization
about a lot of
concerns and
L2s.
things.
You can say that about most L2s, but what I'm saying is you're going to have like a lot of BS, obviously. A lot of people just saying, look, an L2 and not doing it in a fundamentally secure way.
Yeah.
But the ones that are done in a correct way are fundamentally interesting.
I think so.
And then what are you doing? You're tapping into Bitcoin's liquidity. And
So
then
it
there
kind of
you go.
goes
It's
back
all
to
branding.
PMF. Like, what is the point? Again, like,
There's definitely demand for like scalable like solutions to Bitcoin that are like smart contract compatible and EVM compatible. I think as we continue to like abstract all this stuff away, like we need that.
I agree on the fact that smart contracts are interesting. There's a reason why we've been in EVM for so long. But like when you talk to a Bitcoin person, like a true Bitcoin, like I've been DCAing since 1995, like those people don't understand what a UTXO is.
Yeah, that's
why
I'm
would
giving
they
this
move to a
presentation,
Bitcoin
though, for those
L2?
people, you know.
Like
But
those
that's-
are
that's the
that's
thing.
the actual Bitcoin community. At this point, all these L2s are just like recycled EVM people.
I mean, I would say they're trying. I don't know, man. I feel like you're being like a little bit of a hater. Like I think you should expand your mind.
Let's all flood Christian bag.
Most of it, okay, 40 Bitcoin L2s, probably 38 are dog shit. Like don't get me wrong, but the point being, at least a few of these are actually going to be valuable, and people are going to use them. And Bitcoiners eventually will probably use them. Your laser eyes guys who hate anything that isn't sending money. You know.
I mean, those same laser eye guys deposited into Celsius, so it's like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we're making Bitcoin fun again, and we don't care about what like those guys have to say. And I think eventually maybe without even knowing it, they'll be using this stuff, and it'll be so seamlessly integrated.
As long as it's orange. The way I see it is that you want an orange Bitcoin, religion or brand. There's a strength of the brand or religion, if you like, and you want them to be using the orange casino.
So
orange
would making
casino,
it
yes.
faster make the cult better?
Yeah. Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you.
We want to be able to gamble cheaply. I don't want to pay $200 every time I want to gamble on a shitcoin, but if I can pay like 2 cents,
Yeah, but
like,
if you have 20 million,
There, like, so even right now, you're saying gambling, cool. Is there like UX wise a realistic like, oh, I would totally use this to gamble on Bitcoin?
I think if you
Or are we
I
just
think if you
still
can-
waiting?
If there's something you want to do and you can just do it cheaper and faster without any like unnecessary trade-offs, like that's just net better.
Look
Like,
at
no,
what
like,
Lightning.
I don't disagree with you. Solana grew because of that.
Yeah.
Well,
But like
look at what Lightning tried to do, and it's all about point of sale and like actually spending the Bitcoin's permission, you know.
But like Lightning's the one with all the federated nodes and like
Yeah. So
you
the
have
design-
to
the
like talk to your
design-
cousin's cousin and like you can never send anything,
The
right?
design has flaws, but
Yeah.
as a use case, is like people wanted to live
Yeah.
on
Yes.
Bitcoin
Yeah,
and
yeah,
spend it
yeah.
for their everyday life. So
Yeah.
making payments faster, cheaper, you know, better UX. That's the other, you know, benefit of scaling, or L2
Like
side
yeah, that
chaining.
makes sense. Like just going back to the Bitcoin white paper. Yes, if they can solve that, cool.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
Being able to
Bitcoin's
use it as
inherently
money.
not scalable, like in itself. Just like Ethereum, we've realized it's not. The Ethereum base layer is never going to scale the way it needs to. So we're going to do roll-ups. Bitcoin is like going to go the same way if we want to do more fun stuff, or even if you want to use Bitcoin to buy a coffee, you know, as the meme goes, like you're not going to do that long term, but maybe on an L2 you can.
I just think that the argument that there's a lot of like garbage projects that come in and take advantage of an idea, therefore like nullifies the idea, like isn't quite the right way to look at it, to be honest. Just because there's like a... No? Okay. All right, moving on.
I think that's it. We'll wrap it up there if nobody
Can
else
we?
says it.
So, can you go? So, I guess going back to that ordinal transfer topic there, when you're transferring ordinals, you're really transferring like the chain of ownership, right? You're not really sending another transaction because the actual data is sitting in a transaction somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And when you're transferring the actual Satoshi, it's not like you're not sending another transaction with the same thing, right?
No, you're not that's right. You're not repeating the data, but you're saying that I associated data with a Satoshi first, and the node has made an index, and you know the first one to do it wins or has control, and then I'm sending the Satoshi around and not repeating the data.
I think you're correct to say we're tracking like the chain of ownership, but we're tracking it with this kind of like separate like off-chain system, because like even with this, like again, the Bitcoin protocol itself doesn't care about what's inside of the boxes, like that the ordering of these Satoshis and how they end up in these blocks down here, like that's all ordinals on top of Bitcoin. Bitcoin itself doesn't care about this, but yeah, we have this like off-chain indexer that's tracking the chain of ownership. I think is a good way to look at it. All right,
Cool.
thank you everybody.
Yeah, one last reminder: the poll up there is now up.
Oh.
So go ahead and tap that poster.
You
over
should
there.
get your again. I know we've been saying it, but there's definitely maybe something coming for those of you who mint a certain number of EthVan POAPs.
And yeah, on Wednesday, Bitcoin Pizza Day. Come by Haddon Park. It's on our Twitter, Discord, everywhere we announced it. So check it out. Come by, get some pizza, and thanks.